Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, sir.
And, let me first of all thank the director and Professor Manjula for inviting me to share my experiences with the distinguished people here, and also giving us a wonderful time to ponder over what already has been presented by eminent speakers like Dr. Ratna, Dr. Bhatt, Professor Shanat Kumar, and of course Dr. Tele Anantha. Now my topic of discussion today is tele-assessment and intervention, current trends, standards and strategies. I must confess that the trends and strategies have more or less been covered by most of the speakers who have spoken to me before now. So I would like to restrict myself in terms of introducing about advantages and benefits of e-learning, then standards that are being followed, and sharing few of my experiences which I have worked with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare with respect to telehealth and telecare solutions, especially using ICT technologies. And then I would also like to discuss few strategies which probably could be useful for some of the telehealth applications. So let me begin. I guess now we are quite familiar with this e-learning terminology, but let me focus saying that it's an instructional content which is a very structured content designed, and it has to be an interactive approach to educating and informing the learners for a continuous skills and upgradation of knowledge. Now when we say this with respect to the health, especially the for example our Aish, if I consider as a customer, the scope for the institute or for under the domain of health comes for training most of these healthcare professionals, starting from the caregiver, starting from the family, starting from the even the ASHA worker. If I really look at the end person who is delivering the health to the doorsteps in rural India, and also various professionals like doctors, speech language pathologists, and most of the professionals. So the tremendous learning happens from everyone, and most of these learning currently now, especially in Ministry of Health, I've been associated with Institute of Population Sciences, we've associated with St. John's Hospital, I've been associated with the Center for Global Health Research. Most of the places it is still in the traditional mode of training. So there's a very big opportunity for institute like Aish to shift, especially using the distant mode education and with a combination of distant mode and e-learning, to train a lot of these people so that the resources are made plenty available for reaching the services. Well, the benefits, as I was just telling, it's less expensive because we create a content and it can be used by plenty of people who can learn this content at their own pace of time, and it's a self-paced learning, so you don't need teachers or mentors to be there always around. It helps in faster learning, and the material which we generate is always reliable, in the sense the study material will be consistent, and you will have a version control of your study material, and you can easily update in parts the particular course material. That is, you don't have to entirely update. If there's any change, you can go into the parts and you can update the course material. So that's the biggest advantage we have in e-learning. So when The further benefits we get is a good retention, and it gives an immediate feedback. So we have something called as assessments, which we build in after every module, which checks their learning knowledge continuously, and then which gives a feedback about the status of learning. I guess Professor Shanat Kumar discussed in detail the current technologies of feedback, and there are various methods of collecting feedback and evaluating what is being learned and what is being shared. Now, this is also one very good enabler of peer-to-peer learning, and it can across communities. It can be global, and you can have a good peer-to-peer learning that can also happen. So before I come to types of learning, the concept, as earlier speakers were discussing, the learning has changed from push learning, which we have all been used to pull learning concept. So this generation currently, that is especially after the web revolution, people have started learning on their own. So if somebody asks me what is the instructional design methodology he is using, I think he is making his instruction design in his mind, how he wants to learn. And because there is a very big access of content is available on net, based on his ability and cognitive abilities, he is able to make a choice how we can move forward in learning. So with this full concept of learning which has come in, especially we now terminate it to the point called as social learning. We call it as massive online courses. That's the Khan Academy kind of Stanford University, MIT University, which are putting all on free. Coursera. Now these are all the points where learners get in and try to learn first what they are. I mean, if I'm coming into the class, first I will try to have an exposure of what is that I'm going to learn. And as Professor Shanat was mentioning, the classrooms have become only whether I have learned it right or wrong. The instructor is going to just check whether I have any doubts or whether I am yet to learn something more to achieve a certification or probably to move further. So the classrooms have become very focused these days, and it is very focused because the learners are doing learning all through the web and other media. So when you come to the types of learning, standalone courses are there which are delivered through web, virtual classroom courses, which I guess already you have a virtual exposure in Aish, you are doing virtual classroom courses, learning games and simulations, embedded learning. Embedded is where the e-learning content is embedded in a particular program already, where they can do the learning before they really explore the particular program or hardware also for that matter. Then blended learning, which is a combination of classroom and e-learning. Mobile learning, which I think earlier speakers were telling, the mobile learning is the next way of learning. Especially in India, when we see there is mobile literacy is very high, and there is every chance that mobile learning will pick up in further coming days, especially when there's 3G and 4G which is going to come up this year. So then we have this knowledge management, which is educating group of people and by sharing their resources and knowledge on them. So I guess e-learning can be delivered in any medias, which I think they have covered it earlier. Audio in MP3s, collaborating through the web, electronic text in web pages, e-books and electronic documents. Similarly, the combination of management system with content, that is integrated with combinations. Then softwares where we are trying to give simulations, based learning, and interactive animations also, and video, visuals and other types. Specifically when I come to the video, I refer to what Mr. Ajiz just gave the presentation. Video has again come back as a medium of learning. In 90s to 2005, video was a little subdued in the sense because the multimedia, the web was really ruling in terms of learning medium. Now with the advent of this new communication speeds of 3G, 4G, and also the broadband availability all over India, now we have video which is coming back as a major learning medium. I think one of the case in example is our Khan Academy, which everybody wants to learn through videos. Because it's a very simple one, you can have the best of the resource, explaining it to you a particular concept in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, and it can be split into n number of modules, and which can have your own time and your own pace of learning, which you can choose, and then go through these videos to achieve the purpose of a certification or a course. So I think video is making a very big comeback, and next, this especially 2013 and next 5 years, I guess that will define the learning medium. Then the visuals and other types. Now the other types is very important in this context because most of the e-learning content which we develop, all this and whatever have been developed till now, we have been developing it for a particular standard which works on a PC or a laptop, or probably maybe some of the learning on a video or probably a laser display. But now there are a lot of standards which has come in, specifically in US, which is called a Section 508 standards, where most of these contents have to adhere to people who are with disabilities. The disabilities could be people who have color blindness, people who can't see, people who have less hearing. It can be any disability for that matter, motor skills. So they have set a lot of standards when you are designing these content. So the challenge for any content developer or instruction designer, when it comes to the specific domain of developing learning content for institutes like AYUSH, is to understand the disability and try to give or probably do the instruction designing in such a way that it is common for all. Whether he is able or disabled, everybody will have the same content which he will be viewing and he can have the access to. So I guess that is, for example, if I make a content which is there available on web or through an LMS, it should also be able to see, they should be able to see on electronic braille devices. And there has been a consistent progress even in these assisted devices like braille, where you can also directly connect to the website and see some of these e-learning contents. Well, this is a composition of e-learning, which is a traditional thing and which is still continuing. And wherein the layer 1, we call it as the user access, wherein the user will try to log in through the internet or intranet-based environment to access his learning content and learn. The second one, we have something called as common services, that is the user management, that is profile management, and collaboration, that is when you want to have an online or offline kind of learning. Then event management, which is specific to scheduling, course scheduling, your messages, all that stuff. So that is the common services we call as layer 2. Layer 3 is learning content management system, learning management system, assessment and administration. Now here, content management system is something which we talk about, making this content which will be developed for these courses which we develop. Basically, trying to update, give a restrictive access, give a follow, and once they need to clear a particular course, then they need to move forward, those sort of conditionalities. All those stuff we can do it in the content management system. And LMS is a place where we deliver this content, that is with a combination of this management and content, we are delivering the content here. And the other one is called as assessment. The assessment is one aspect of where we do this online assessment, and this assessment will be kind of a question bank, or it could be FAQs, or it could be a simple questions, yes or no kind of thing, basically to assess whether they have gathered a particular knowledge after going through the module. So this assessment is also one aspect which is it is a part of learning process where we are assessing the individual about the knowledge what he has gained. Now, administration is the particular aspect of entirely managing the admin part of this e-learning. Now, to have all this, we need to have a database which is the layer 4, where we are using XML and SQL. And that is most popular these days. And then we have got this layer 5 as infrastructure, which everybody was talking about. We need to have FTP, HTTP, or TCP/IP, which Ajish was explaining, and SMTP. So basically, this is the composition of an entire e-learning solution. Now, this is a very generic solution which we are currently following everywhere. Now, the same composition of e-learning we can also apply for people with disabilities, but we need to have few specific guidelines which are to be very stringently followed, specifically in terms of developing the content, wherein we need to maintain few disability standards, and accessibility have to be very user friendly, very minimal in terms of complexity, and we need to make it comfortable for people to really come and explore, to learn. They need to feel encouraged to see the moment they see the web page, they need to come and learn. That's how we must have to create this. Specifically when we have disability, people in mind, disabled people in mind, when they have to access this sort of learning resources. So that's the biggest challenge actually, because most of these technologies, especially now with mobile, with the handheld devices, and with the HTML5, we call it as in the IT, we don't have any standardization that has happened yet. I guess it will take another 1 or 2 years more. But any learning content, the concept has come in saying that bring your own device, BYOD. So any student who wants to come in, he wants to bring his own device, whether he wants to bring a laptop, whether he wants to bring his own iPad. So he should be able to access the content how he sees in any of these devices. There has to be a consistency. So the challenge for us as e-learning content developer is in terms of standardization of these tools and softwares. So in the morning when I was having a discussion with Dr. Bhatt, I was saying we are sitting on a time bomb because the technology has overtaken us, and now we need to most of the technology is available, but we are yet to establish this sort of standardization, consistency in content, and there is a huge gap in terms of, especially in India, there is a digital divide is very high. So we have a huge gap among people who can access these sort of resources and people who can't access these sort of resources. So how do we bridge this gap? So it's like ICT has really grown in last 10 years, as Professor Shanath was mentioning. It has taken leaps and bounds, and I think we have to consolidate at least that growth in the next 5 years to really match up to what we are delivering and what we are using these technologies for. Yeah, I guess I just covered the same slide and I'm just going to move forward. I come to the standards. So the standards are intended to coordinate those new emerging technologies which I was just talking about, and wherein we can implement these in commercial and public implementations. So the essence of this particular standards is that we need to have a consistency in content and delivery, and to knit together disparate groups which I was mentioning, and then to standardize the technology on a common platform. For example, whatever we see in Apple Mac or iPad, we cannot see the same thing in any of our other mobiles, because they both use different technology. Now, one is proprietary, one is open source. The most popular or probably widely used is Android, which is a OS which is currently in use and is very popular. So the technology has not come so that it can also work on a Mac or it can also work on an Android. So this is where the challenge is. So we need to have some sort of standardization is anyway happening every day these days, and I hope we actually develop these standards at a very cost-effective way. In the sense, for example, open source, embracing open source technology is one of the methods of doing it in a very cost-effective way, which the government of India is advocating also. Now, specific to the e-learning content, we talk about standards called as Shareable Content Object Reference Model. It is called as SCOM. Now let me just explain to you in detail what is SCOM. Now, when we develop any content, it will have a main chapter, it will have sub-chapter, and it will have subtopics. Now the shelf life of this particular learning content probably can be 1 year or 2 years, but later on it gets updated, probably in the sub-chapter level or chapter level. So if we have one aspect of, if we follow this model of SCOM, then it's easily to modular wise update this content, one, and also we can make sure that it is interoperability is very high to most of these LMS applications which are around in the market, and the reusability. For example, if some other university in some other part of the country wants to use only a particular module of that particular chapter, he can only take that particular module and use it for his e-learning requirement. So basically it is promoting sharing. It is easy to update, it will promote sharing, it will allow us to use it in many of these learning management systems, and it's basically known for its reusability concept. So I guess most of the content which are being designed today in e-learning market will follow SCOM standards. Now this is specific standards for this is for the disability standards. This is called as section 508. Now this was introduced in 98 in US. Basically they amended the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Now all the information, electronic information technology has to be made accessible to people with disabilities. That's the fundamental idea of bringing this change in the Act. So what it means for a content developer like us, to us, we need to interpret all the medias, especially text, audio, video, animations, everything has to work, for example, on a braille reader. Now how do we do this? So there are some set standards of development which is laid out, wherein these have to be written. For example, if I'm using a video, I need to have a textual version of the particular video. If I'm using an audio, I need to have a textual version, so that they can access through any of these assistive devices and go through the content. Making sure that any person will be able to access all these variety of contents in the same manner. So the section 508 was introduced in years and will continue. Now with respect to Indian government, here we don't have any specific standard for e-learning from the government of India which is prescribed. While we have something called as NIC standards which we follow for websites, which also has accepted the W3C, that is World Wide Web Consortium standards of disability, and also the standards of WCAG. There is no specific for e-learning as such. Now why we need a specific standard that has to be developed in e-learning is because the instruction design is the core of any learning, and this instruction design has to be done keeping all these target segments in mind, and then we need to develop the content. So while there is a policy initiative that has to be taken from the government, we are trying to follow, at least my company, we are trying to follow section 508 guidelines for developing most of this content. So Ministry of Health, we have developed at least some 20 hours of content till now, where most of them are all section 508 compliant and also SCOM compliant. I think the main ICT trends I'll just rush through because I guess most of them have talked about it. There is one, they call it as an end of PC age, but I guess we are still in rural India, and most of the towns we still have PCs around, and we have to make sure that we deliver all our content to the PCs, and also for the upcoming trends like our mobile or our notepads or any of the handheld devices. The consumerization. This is one of the biggest change that has happened in the last 3 years. What has happened is, all these days if you have to buy a PC, we have to buy a computer for a purpose. But now, The purpose defines what I need to buy. I don't need to buy a computer. I can always buy an iPad. I can always buy an Amazon book, ebook. So it is depends on the purpose we are buying. So the consumerization has happened in the IT industry, especially in the hardware segment. That's one of the biggest change we have got now. Then the social networking, content sharing and collaboration, and everything moving to the cloud. I think moving to the cloud is one of the biggest cost beneficiary for us in terms of delivering the services. As Dr. Antapurna was mentioning that even the hardware is moved. Not only the software, hardware has moved. I think it's just that we need to have the connectivity. And the biggest question mark is connectivity today in India. While we talk about 2 Mbps, 1 Mbps, but we still not able to have even 512 kbps consistently for at least 24 hours. But yes, we have to accept this digital divide. We need to cater to these people and also the people who have less of connectivity. So I foresee that all whatever we are trying to deliver using ICT technologies have to cater to all the people who have and have nots. So essentially, if you ask me, a e-learning material, if I develop, it should also be available on web, it should also be available on LMS, it should also be available on a DVD or CD, it should also be available on a TV. Through a channel, I should be able to transmit. I think this will continue till the time we reach the complete level of a complete infrastructure, especially in terms of ICT. So we cannot wish away saying that it's an end of the PC age. It's not the end of the PC age. I think we still have to go forward carrying it. Now, they talk about home PC and TV integration. Now, this is one of the very promising, prospective tele-healthcare combination. Home PC and TV integration. Then we have got something called as Office and Surface desktops. The next generation smartphones. So, hardware device, iOS, Android, apps, content download, yeah. So, as I said, PC is not going to end, it will still continue. But these are all the trending technologies. Well, how consumerization happened, I guess that's a lineage there. 1970 computer at office, 1990 office equipment more powerful than a home computer, smartphone more powerful than an office computer, and today our personal devices are more powerful than my office computers. So that's where we have reached, and we can't send